I don't think icebreaker would take more than 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Yeah, just fine. Vishnu will be joining us in 5 minutes. Hi, Jack. Hi, Jack. Am I audible, guys?
Yeah, you are audible. Hey, Zach.
Hi, Jack.
He dropped out. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Hi,
he'll
Jack.
rejoin. Where this sound coming from?
Yes, it was my WhatsApp.
Sound coming from. Hey, Vishnu.
Vishnu, you're on mute again.
Be right back.
Hey, Danny.
One second. Hi.
Yeah, how are you
Yeah.
doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. What about you?
Great, great. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. So yeah, so we'll wait for few minutes to join more people.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we have Vishnu and Srijan from DeepSource.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Danny.
Hi, everyone. Actually, I'm eating something. I'll turn on my video after some time, okay? During my presentation, maybe.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, cool.
Hey.
Hey, Azim, how are you doing today?
Hi, hello everyone.
Great, awesome. Thanks for joining in. So we have
How are you all doing?
Hi Prajwal.
Hi Saif, hi Vishnu, hi Saurabh, Vijay. How are you all?
Very good, Prachur. Very good.
Great. So we'll wait for a few minutes to before starting the event.
Safe.
Hey Ritik, how are you doing today?
Oh, hi Srijan. Hi Saf. How are you?
Hey Prajwal, we are good. How are you? How are you doing?
Yeah,
How's
all good.
what-
All good
what's
here.
doing? Nice.
So how's the work going?
Huh? Pardon?
How's the work going?
Work's going good as well. So,
Okay.
Steph, I think we can start. We can start talking to people.
Yeah, like more people are joining in. Let's wait for at least 2 minutes, then we can start.
Okay, sure.
Hi Zach. I think let's start, Siddhant.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
yes, so we'll quickly introduce us. Steph, can you go ahead with that?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, like welcome everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today in this event, Hacktoberfest with DeepSource. And my name is Sav, and I work as a product marketer here at DeepSource. And today, like I'll be having Srijan and Vishnu from my team. And so, yeah, over to you, Srijan.
Okay. So, welcome everyone. I'll first quickly introduce DeepSource to you if you're not aware of what it is. So, DeepSource is a tool which automatically finds and fixes bugs in your code. So, we have integrations with a lot of DCS provider like GitHub, Bitbucket, and GitLabs. And yeah, so in a nutshell, we find and tell you the issues, and we fix some of the issues. So this event, Hacktoberfest with DeepSource, we are trying to contribute back to the open source community because we ourselves use a lot of open source linters and other open source technologies. So I'll just go ahead and have a quick icebreaker where we can you can either talk to us or you can put your details in the chat. So you can say what your name is, what makes you contribute to open source, and what are the open source topics, technologies you're interested in or you have contributed to in the past. So yeah, let's go on. If anybody would like to speak, or if anybody would like to type that in chat. Uh, I guess Zach has tuned in already, so we have a keynote by him. So Zach, why don't you just quickly brief everybody about you?
Thank you, Siddhant. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. I'm going to share my screen. I made like a little presentation this morning that I can share. But I'm pretty new to this, so let me just bear with me for a second. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, let's go to the beginning. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so Saif emailed me last week about doing a little talk for this Hacktoberfest.
Zach, I would like to interrupt you here. So we have a different slot for your presentation for this because you have a keynote talk with us. So
this is not that time.
yeah. So
Yeah.
So first, we would like to just introduce everybody, just get to know everybody, and then we'd just get ahead to your talk. So till the time, let's just start with you. If you want to tell everybody what you have done in the open source community and tell you something about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Zach, and I've been doing open source for probably, I started on like Bitbucket and GitHub maybe 5 years ago, and I just do it for fun. I've written a lot of programs that I find to be useful for myself, and I think other people have found them to be useful, which is great. But I like the open source nature of it because I have learned a lot from others. And I'm hoping that others can learn something from me, maybe. And also, I like to be able to show my process in creating, and maybe other people can find some inspiration in that. So a lot of the tools I use are languages I like are Go and Python and Lua. I've been doing a lot of coding, with Lua and JavaScript lately that I like.
That's great. That's great. Let me just quickly move on to Danny. I see he's there. So hi, Danny. Thank you for coming in.
Hi, Srijan. Yeah, great. So I'll tell about myself. Like unlike the other guys here, I think I'm somewhat a noob in this OSS community. But yeah, I do some. I did some contributions, but yeah, I think in comparison, it will be much lesser. But I would like to more about it. I would like to know more about it, and I would like to say get the experience like that Zach is about to share. Those kind of stuff. Actually, that's what really interests me in this thing. Also, I'll be like sharing a brief session about. I will be sharing something about a open source project which I was contributing, and yeah, basically, yeah, I've been doing this web development for like more than 5 years, I guess. But yeah, I'm not that much into OSS, but I think this like after this Hacktoberfest, it may change, hopefully.
Okay. So before moving on to, I guess Muhammad Azim has already told us about him in the chat. So I'll tell you guys about myself because I've not really introduced myself. So yeah, I'm Siddhant. I work with DeepSource. I work in the language analyzer team. So as a part of that, I also contribute to some open source softwares. I've contributed to one of Google's repository in the past. It's called the JAX project, and yeah, I keep on contributing to some of the projects in the open source community. Uh, I mainly try to contribute on developing the code quality, the issues we find, and try to fix those issues. Uh, okay. We have Prajwal here as well. Prajwal, if you would like to share something.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Prajwal Jhara. I'm BTech Electrical Engineering student at Aligarh Muslim University. I was past Deep Source intern and been contributing to FOSS Asia Open Meeting Server and some other small projects. Also was helping Deep Source in shipping uh, good quality codes and deep source configuration files. So it really helped me to get in touch with open source, and will try my best uh, to contribute more often in OSS in near future.
That's nice. Thank you.
Thank
Uh,
you.
we have Siddhant and Adil. If anybody would like to go forward and speak.
Hello.
Hey, Siddhant.
Hello, I'm Adil.
Hey, Adil.
Yeah, I'm 17 years old and right now I'm in class 11th.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So I like open source contributing. So I wanted to learn more about it.
Okay, that's good to know.
Hey everyone, I'm Siddhant, and I also work at DeepSource, and I work on the JavaScript analyzer. And recently, I contributed to Babel, which is an open source project, and it is a JavaScript compiler. And I have also been a GSOC student. Thank you.
That's good.
I guess I'm left. So I'm Vishnu. So I run the platform team here at DeepSource. Again, a noob in terms of open source contributions, but yeah, there are lots of projects that I've started up and created a repo with an initial commit. But yeah, so I hope to. Yeah, I also I do contribute at times, but yeah, I'm not a pro at that. But yeah, that's about it from my side.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you,
hello,
Siddhant.
So
actually. If I may take a few seconds.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Mohammed Azim. I'm a mechanical engineer and I work with, Toyota for a manufacturing company, and there I've seen the implementation of this machine learning and everything. So basically there I started to learn about ML and AI, and then uh, with this event of Hacktoberfest, I've learned how the Git and version control works, and I have not done any major contribution, but minor README files and to learn how things work. I've done this, so hopefully I'll contribute to the open source, and look forward to learning from you guys.
thank you, Mohammed. Okay, I'll move ahead with the introduction part. So, uh, before everything, we would like to, I'd like to tell you guys that DeepSource recently we launched a platform called a tech tool called Discover, where all the issues are there. So, what Mohammed was saying, if he has just started with open source contribution, you can just go there and find the issues in the open source repositories to contribute to. We have a separate workshop for that, which Vishnu is going to tell you more about that. And yeah, so I'll start by telling you more about Hacktoberfest, what exactly is Hacktoberfest and what are the objective of Hacktoberfest. So during Hacktoberfest, in the month of October, many of the open source repository, they uh, they accept contributions from other developers to contribute to their projects to fix some existing issues to get their work easier, right? So the objective of Hacktoberfest is to solve those issues, is to fix, is to contribute to open source software. If you are just beginning to open source contributions, Hacktoberfest is the best time for you to do that. So when you contribute to Hacktoberfest, there are some things which you should do and something which you should avoid. For example, you should always be respectful of the maintainer's time and follow the contribution guidelines properly. Like if there are CLAs you need to sign, you should do that. If there are some tests, and if the repository maintainer expects you to follow a proper templating of the PR, to let them know what the PR is about in a nutshell, because they come across a lot of PRs, a lot of pull requests during the month of October. So yeah, a proper templating, a proper way of explaining what your change is doing, what your change is fixing, that's always appreciated. Make sure your commits are clean, like they are clean of all the like proper like simple issues, simple formatting, and yeah, write good commit messages. Commit messages should describe what your project, what your change, what your commit is actually doing. So these are some basic guidelines which you should follow, and Zach is going to tell you more about it, I guess. So over to Sapphire. Saph.
Yeah, thank you, Susan, for sharing the introduction part. So let me share my screen and tell you guys about the the detailed event schedule that which we're going to follow. And so after this introduction part, so we'll have Jack here. So he's going to talk about ways to discover uh, ideas for open source projects, and then we'll be having one workshop with Vishnu for discover and how it is useful for contributing to Hacktoberfest. Then we'll have three project case. So one is by Christian Rocha and from Bubble Tea, and one is from Danny, who is also joined the call, and one from Jesse Duffield from LazyGet. Then we'll have one Q&A session in which you guys ask any question related to open source or Hacktoberfest or GitHub. So I think over to Zach, so you can start.
Now's good?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Saeed, and thank you, Srijan. I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see, it worked last time. Okay, can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, so yeah, that was a great introduction, and thank you, Saif, for reaching out to me. Saif asked me to talk about how to discover issues, and it's something that I am not the best person to ask about. I feel like my utility is more in how to basically get ideas and create projects and make as many projects as you can and see which ones are good and which ones are bad. I made a lot of bad projects. So my apologies to Saif if this is not exactly what you needed, but I think this talk is something that I wish I had been given when I was starting to code. Because I was always wonder, how do you see these people coding some amazing things? Where do they get their ideas? How do they think about doing those things? And I've thought a lot about this, and I don't have advice on, I don't really have that much advice personally about this, but what I'm going to do is talk about what a lot of great thinkers and great creators think in terms of being inspired and how do they attain inspiration. So inspiration itself is basically a psychological construct that is basically motivation that is evoked. So when you feel motivated, that is basically inspiration, and it's evoked because it comes from something, but what it comes from is the real question. And hopefully I'm going to tell you some ways of finding how to get it and where you can get it from. So briefly, about me. So my name is Zach, as I mentioned, and I'm on GitHub at Schulze, and I've made hundreds and hundreds of projects, almost 1,000 projects now. About 25% are private, and eventually they'll become public probably. A lot of them are bad, some of them are good. Each one came from an idea that I had that came from somewhere, and I've been trying to figure out how to continually have ideas like this. Now, I really encourage anyone to go to my GitHub and find any project that's interested you and make a pull request. I take pull requests. You don't have to do basically, I'll take anything basically. I'm so happy to have people contribute that I will help you contribute to any project that you find interesting. So if you find something interesting and you're wondering if you can contribute, go ahead, ask me questions. I'm happy to help. So especially for Hacktoberfest, that is definitely applicable. So how do you achieve inspiration? Immediately, you get kind of these interesting quotes from people that are kind of at odds. So Einstein said, creativity is the residue of time wasted. And Jack London, who's a famous author, said, you can't go after inspiration. You have to go after inspiration with a club. So these are diametrically opposed. Einstein says, wait around for it. And then Jack London says, you have to go after it. So which is it? And it turns out from what I've gathered is that it's both. You have to, there's many different ways. And I found using these quotes from famous thinkers, I'm going to kind of delineate a couple of the ways that I've found. So I've basically found so far 12 different ways that you can find inspiration and you can design, make ideas and find creativity. And I'm going to order these in order of practicality. So in the beginning, the first ones are going to be the ones that are most practical, the ones that I think that you can start doing right now, and things that are most likely to yield good ideas, good creativity, good inspiration. So if you want to leave during the talk, leave after the next two slides. They're most important ones, or maybe the most practical ones that I feel are practical. But this is all subjective, so it's totally open to interpretation. So the first way is asking what if. This is a very, very common thing I found. So there's some quotes, famous philosopher Heraclitus. He said, the unlike is joined together and from the difference results from the most beautiful harmony. And then put another way by Banksy, a famous artist, he said, think outside the box, collapse the box, take an effing sharp knife to it. So the idea is ask what if I took these two things and combined them? What if this thing worked a different way? This is such a common idea that you can find TED Talks after TED Talk after TED Talk, all asking this idea, using what if to find inspiration. So it's immediately useful because you can find yourself with software asking, take two tools that you code, combine them. What if you combine them into one tool? Find something that annoys you. What if you wrote some software to make it so it doesn't annoy you anymore? What if you find something that works well? What if it worked better? So these are all questions, just what if, and then, add on whatever you want. It's totally open to interpretation. It's a great question to keep in mind, especially when you're looking at coding things. So another one I like is I call constant capture. Inspiration is everywhere. So it's a famous author, Charlotte Erickson. And this is a picture of a American band called Weezer, and they are headed by this guy named Rivers Cuomo. And I find this guy particularly interesting because he uses a data-driven approach to create music. He basically writes down everything. He writes down every lyric, every chord he thinks of, and he keeps them in a spreadsheet. And in this spreadsheet, he just looks at it and then takes things in the spreadsheet that he wants or he finds interesting and then uses those to create. So his inspiration comes from basically getting everything he can and then filtering it in a data-driven way. So this is like a perfect thing for coding as well. You can easily just make a list. So this is one thing I do personally is I have a list of things that I consider to be impossible. And then every once in a while, I go to that list and I say, is one of these things actually possible? Could I make it? Could I do it? And sometimes those become projects. Another one, obvious one, is just keep a list of coding projects, just coding ideas, software projects that you have in mind. You don't need to do them, just keep a list constantly and use that list from time to time to find inspiration. All right, so now we'll get a little wonky. So another one is dreams. Now this one, it may seem at first that this is not very practical because you can't control your dreams, but there's a lot of artists who believe that you can. So this quote, Salvador Dali, he's a famous artist, a surrealist. He said you should eat 36 sea urchins gathered on the last days before a full moon. And the reason is that it would give you the best possible sleep and you'd have the best possible dreams that would inspire you. So he said a lot of things along these lines, that basically your dreams are what you get your ideas from. And the way to acquire them is to always kind of write down your dreams, think about your dreams when you wake up, and get good sleep. So this quote from Mark Twain is about how God made the world when he was sleepy. And this idea that in between waking and dreaming, you can have a lot of great ideas. You're kind of letting go of your preconceived notions. So another one that I think also goes well with coding is this idea of simplifying complexity. So one of my favorite musicians here on the left is Charles Mingus, who's a bassist, a jazz bassist. And he said, making the simple complicated is commonplace. Making the complicated simple, awesomely simple, that's great. And then Murray Shelley here said that invention basically comes from out of a void, out of chaos. And she's the author of Frankenstein, a famous book. So both of these people believe that you can create basically by taking something that others perceive to be complicated and simplifying it. And you may realize that this is a way a lot of software actually works. A lot of times there is a very complicated user interface or user interaction, and you find attacks that you just need to simplify it. Like if you can write a program that decreases 3 clicks to 2 clicks, or 2 clicks to 1 click, or no click, that's revolutionary when it comes to software. So simplifying, finding things that are complicated. If you find something complicated, simplify it. Can you simplify it? Ask yourself about that, and maybe you'll have an idea or be inspired from it. Oh, yeah. And then kind of the inverse of that is complexify simplicity. Now, I don't have any quotes for this, but you'll find a lot of people making cool projects that maybe are making them too complicated. For instance, you could make a Raspberry Pi powered cat door opener. I mean, a cat can just walk in through a door, but why not attach a Raspberry Pi and have it automatically open when the cat is there using some AI machine learning? So there's no problem with that. I think that's a great way to have inspiration too. Feel free to make things complicated, but also feel free to make things simple. I don't have any quotes for this one either, but I do believe this is a very useful inspiration source. So innovative interaction. What I mean by this is find a new way to interact with your medium. So in this case, it's coding. So find a new way to try coding. Use a different computer, use a different editor. Maybe you use Atom or Sublime. Try using Vim or something else. Try programming in a new language. Like maybe you know Go, but you're interested in Rust. Just try making something in Rust. Maybe don't even use a computer. Try programming on a piece of paper. Just write down some pseudocode. So this idea of this interaction, it may seem like it will do nothing, but for some reason, when you actually do it, you find ideas that you didn't think about before, just interacting with your software in a different way. Now, this is very also cliche. So failure leads to inspiration, unfortunately. It's hard to do, but as these quotes say, so like Edwin Land, who invented the Polaroid, said an essential aspect of creativity is not being afraid to fail. And Gilbert George, who are some artists, said we prefer not to have ideas. We try not to have ideas, preferring accidents. So these ideas are basically break things and see what happens. Try things and make mistakes. I think a big part of this is not to worry about feeling shame if something doesn't succeed. I think that will impede you for learning from your failures. So I'm not saying you should go out to fail. Maybe just if you do fail, try to draw inspiration from it. It can be a source of inspiration. So this is probably the last and most practical one. There's 5 more after this that I consider less practical. This is probably the most common one that I found of all the famous people I've been searching for or finding these quotes from, is that you keep your head to the grindstone. So just do the work. So a famous American author, Madeleine L'Engle, said that inspiration comes during work rather than before it. And Octavia Butler, another famous American author, said habit will help you finish and polish your stories, inspiration won't. So the idea is they're basically saying that you can't get inspiration, you have to just work. And it's true. I think if you just work, just sit down and code things, you will get inspired. It's hard to do it because it's never guaranteed, but you have to try. And one way to make you try, if you don't have any other ideas, you can always, like I said before, try learning a new programming language. Maybe make a GUI for a command line program. Maybe make an API for a database that already exists. So these are things that, I mean, they're not like super innovative. They are kind of innovative, but they're a way to just put your head to the grindstone and do something. And in the doing of something, you may get inspiration about something else. Okay, so these things I'm going to talk about, 4 things that I consider less practical, but I think just to be thorough, there are other ways of attaining inspiration. So this is one I call deep feelings. So Alanis Morissette, who's a famous musician, said we're taught to be ashamed of confusion, anger, fear, and sadness. And to me, they are equally as useful as happiness for making inspiration. And then Yoko Ono, who's also a famous jazz musician, said experiencing sadness and anger can make you feel more creative. And by being creative, you can get beyond your pain or negativity. So I don't recommend making yourself sad or angry to be inspired. But if you find yourself sad or angry, you can utilize that and channel that into inspiration sometimes. A lot of people, especially artists, do this. Now, this one also I consider less practical because it's sort of hard to attain, but nature is an inspiration for a lot of people. Frank Lloyd Wright is a very famous architect, and he says that he goes to nature every day for inspiration for his day's work. And this is a building that he made. Nature will sometimes give you inspiration, sometimes not. It's not guaranteed. I think it's a little impractical, but it is very practical, I think, to just go outside once in a while, go for some exercise once in a while, and you'd be surprised at not trying to think about anything, but you'd be surprised that sometimes ideas will just come to you then. Now, these are also sort of impractical, but I think it's good to know too that you can be inspired by wasting time. So Gertrude Stein is a very famous American poet, and she would say that it takes a heap of loafing to write a book. And Joyce Oates, another writer, said that keeping busy is the remedy for all ills in America. It is also the means by which creative impulse is destroyed. So there's a lot of quotes, there's some quotes from Einstein about this as well, but wasting time can actually yield thoughts. And maybe it's the boredom, maybe it's the delinearity, something about it creates inspiration. And I put this one at the end because it's never guaranteed. Like maybe you just waste time, the time is wasted. But sometimes it may be useful for your creativity. Along those lines is that you should have fun. So Paul Ambrose Valery said that serious people have few ideas and people with ideas are never serious. And Einstein has one of these quotes, creativity is intelligence having fun. So part of having fun, I think, is part of letting go. And letting go means maybe you have some aspirations or some goals, like maybe you want GitHub stars or Twitter followers or something. I think this is useful to maybe let go of that and not think about that and just have fun. Maybe code something that no one needs except for you. Why not? Have fun doing it is the important part. And from there, maybe you will be inspired. And then here is the last one, and I consider the most useless one. Not that it's useless for everyone, but it's very hard to attain, divine inspiration. So St. Augustine had this quote about sometimes it refuses to act when the mind wills and when it often acts against its will. And he was talking about sort of inspiration, but it's embodied in Archimedes when he said a eureka, when he discovered the Archimedes principle, reportedly. But this just happens. Like you can't really control it. You can't really have it guide you. It just happens. So I would use every other way to get inspiration before using this one. but it does happen. So maybe it will happen for you, hopefully. Yeah, and that's basically it. There's 12 ways that I found, and I think maybe this is the most important one from Maya Angelou, is that you can't use up creativity. The more you have, the more you use, the more you have. Basically, creativity begets creativity. So you saw on my GitHub, I have hundreds and hundreds of projects, and it's now like it's very easy for me to come up with projects because I just keep doing it. It's kind of my workflow now is just to come up with ideas. And I'm finding it's easier and easier now. But I hope that these 12 things, and maybe I'm sure actually there are more of them, I hope that these maybe can help you to find some inspiration, think about maybe new projects that you can do, or maybe find ideas to improve other open source projects. I like to use coding as a way to explore inspiration. So a lot of the software I create, I use it just to see what this idea is and where it came from, and use maybe some inspiration to guide me. So I'm sure there's more ways of being inspired, and I'd be actually really interested if anyone wants to share any. You can share anytime. Actually, I'm very open to contributions on GitHub. If you want to like DM me on Twitter or email me, I'm happy to answer any questions or be around for open source guidance. So that's, yeah, don't hesitate to contact me if you have questions. That's all I have prepared. So I'll, if you want to do a question and answer, I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, we can move on to the workshop.
Yeah, sure. So, like, guys, if you had any questions, you can directly ask Zach here, and then after that, we can go ahead for workshop.
Well, Zach, I have something to ask. So I saw you have a lot of repositories, a lot of projects. You keep working on a lot of projects. This is something which I personally have dealt with. So what does it ever happen to you that you are working on something, you're working on one side project, and then you come up with a new idea? Oh, I can do this as well. So you leave that behind and start working on that. And how do you manage this? Because it has happened to me. So what's your experience with this?
Yeah. I actually find there's one aspect of the open source community that I don't quite agree with. This may get to the answer. There's a lot of people will consider a project dead if you're not working on it. I don't like that idea. I don't consider any project dead. So if I have an idea and then I have another idea, I just leave it and I go to the other one. But the other one is always there. It's on the GitHub cloud or whatever. So you can always go back to it. But I would follow your passion. So it sounds like you are doing something and you're passionate about something else. I would follow your passion and go do the other thing. The other thing will always be there, and you can always go back to it. I don't ever consider anything ever like dead or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that was a lot of inspiration. I really enjoyed it.
Great. Yeah, any other questions? Or if not, it's been a real honor to talk to you.
Feel the same.
Great. So I think like we don't have any questions for Jack now. So thank you so much, Jack, for joining us and giving us a very interesting, presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So moving further, we can start the demo. Vishnu, over to you.
Okay. Yeah. So let me just share my screen. Yeah, so one of the biggest problems that a lot of us face, right? So even I'm a beginner who's been trying to contribute to open source. So one of the biggest problem is finding those issues which are easy to like basically getting these small issues that you can potentially fix and you get comfortable with the repository, right? So and so just going on GitHub and just finding a repository and trying to look through the issues is it's really difficult for somebody who's coming outside from the like from the outside the community of that repository to start contributing. That's what I always felt. So that's where Discover comes into the picture. We're trying to make it easier for people to start finding issues that you can contribute and fix and start contributing towards the repository. So yeah, so it's let me just open it up. So it is the deep source discover is available on deepsource.io/discover, and yeah, so essentially what this is it is a bunch of issues that we have detected over in other repositories that are other open source services which are open source repositories that are using deep source. So for example, you can there are a bunch of issues that we have detected, and opening one of them will give you a list of the occurrence of that particular issue. So you can see what the issue is, and you can figure out a way to basically fix it. So right now, there is a unused variable here, for example. So you basically find these issues on Discover, and you can immediately go on to fix those issues. But it gets interesting once you log in. So let me just log into DeepSource. So yeah. Yeah, so once you're logged into deepsource.io, we can now set up a watch list of technology. So for example, I have now selected Go because I'm a gopher. I've set up Go here, and it will track for issues, and it'll give me a list of Go issues that I can contribute to. So this list keeps on updating periodically. So you can come another day and you will find a new set of issues that you can work on, and you can also take bookmark. Say if one of these issues is something that interests you right now, but you don't have the time to work on it right now, you can just bookmark it always. So once you bookmark these issues, it will be available within with the bookmarks. So you will get the issues that are bookmarked in the bookmark tab. Yeah. So now say I want to start fixing a bug. So uh, let's just pick this one, right? So now I know that there is an else statement which is empty, which is not doing anything. So how do I now go ahead and start fixing it? You basically start by creating a new issue on GitHub, and you can file this issue, and then you can, once you submit this issue, you can work on this issue on your and pick it up and solve this. Yeah, so yeah, that is essentially the major walkthrough from my side. Yeah, yeah. So also you can take a look at some of the interesting repositories that are trending right now, which have a lot of issues that you can potentially work on. So you can open up that particular repository, take a look at these issues, or so you can take a look at this and start fixing them from here. It's basically cherry picking, right? You can cherry pick whatever issues you want and start fixing it. Yeah, so that is about it from my side. If you have questions, please feel free.
Um, Hi Vishnu, I'm Danny
Hey,
here.
Danny.
So I'd like to ask one thing, like, is it primarily for open source, or can we use it for like private repos and everything?
Uh, so the finding issues, this is primarily for open source. I didn't really get your question. So how would you like to use this for a private repo?
Okay. Anyway, we'll be having GitHub, right? Oh, okay. I think I'll be missing something. So it will be like we are scanning a repo and like finding stuff, right?
Yeah. So this is automatically scanned. So these repositories are already integrated with DeepSource. So we know we are detecting these issues on their repositories, and we're basically just opening it up to the public so people can come and start fixing those for you. So right
Okay,
now,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
this is for the open source community. Yes.
Yeah, it's not for something like an organization or anything that we can use internally, but it's more like it is aggregating everything from the GitHub itself,
Yeah.
right?
This is not aggregating everything from GitHub. These are the issues that we detect for a GitHub repository, so any repository from the source code, we go through the source code, we analyze the source code, and we find these bugs, for example. Right.
Yeah, cool.
Have you taken a look at DeepSource? I mean, have you used DeepSource as a product? So for internal teams, so for example, for an organization, you can obviously start using it with uh, the normal. Once you log into deepsource.io, you should be able to start using it for your personal projects. or within the organization. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that answers my question. Thanks.
Yeah, Vishnu.
Yeah.
Yeah, pardon me if it is very beginning. Like, I mean, while logging in,
Yeah.
there's an option to choose from all repositories and selected repositories into DeepSource.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, I mean, like, install first DeepSource, right? So,
Yes.
so we have to choose the all repositories or only.
It can be anything. It's up to you.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay, I'd like to ask one more question. Like, is there any plan like this commonly occurring problems, like repeated problems? So, in future, deep source also will resolve that problems, like using AI or something. Is there something going on regarding that?
Could you repeat that?
So, in future, currently it is mostly like detecting the problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, is there any like possibility like in future it will be automatically resolving that?
Yes. So, yeah. So we have something called autofix, which is basically it will. So for some of these issues, we automatically suggest a way to fix the issues automatically. So we basically make those changes for you and send you a PR. Right. So not all the issues are covered, but there are some issues that we are already have the solution already built. So Saurya, could you tell them about that?
Yeah, got it. Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Saurya, maybe you could tell them about autofix.
Yes. Could you stop sharing your screen?
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically, if you guys can see my screen, so that the issues that we saw here, right? So in Discover, so most of these are actually auto fixable, but we are not able to see this because we don't own this repository, right? Because we as the demonstrators, we don't own these repositories, but this one we actually do. So we have an option to auto fix this. So for example, this is a Go repository, and we had like 3 issues across three files, right? So each file has 1 issue. So if we just confirm and run autofix, and it just goes ahead and actually just fixes it.
Yeah, cool. That sounds like a game changer.
Yeah. So just give it a moment. In the meanwhile, I'll also start an autofix for another one. This one is this is done. So this is for Go, and yeah, so it basically combines all of these. And we have these autofixes for a lot of languages. So as in all the languages that we support, we have autofixes for them. So even if you look at modern Python, yeah. So this one could be autofixed, right? So you just run this thing down. So this is what we have created this, and for Python it's actually faster. So that's about it for about autofixes. And in fact, we all run auto formatters, right? Like for example, if you use Python, you use Black for auto formatting. So we also have transformers for that, uh, running all the transforms. It just it simply runs all the transforms across and automatically, so you don't have to configure anything locally or on your CI. So yeah, we have done some work about fixing issues automatically. That's that.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, that explains it. Yeah, and it looks pretty good actually. Interesting. I'll try it out. Thanks.
Uh, okay, so we also have a grant for open source softwares, one-time grant. So we will be giving out a one-time grant to 10 open source projects, and for that you can go to. Let me first open this link first. Wait. So yes, so in deepsource.io/Hacktoberfest, there's a detail here that we are providing open source grant for open source grant to open source maintainers. So you can join them, you can apply for grant, and I guess Saf has already sent that link. I'm not able to find that link. Sorry. Uh,
Yeah, I'll already share the link. So from there, they can fill up the form and they can apply for the grant.
nice.
Yeah. So we'll be having 3 projects showcased today. So I'll ask Danny to start with his presentation. Danny, there?
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, you can start.
Okay. You can see, I hope you can see my screen at the moment, right?
Yeah, we can see your screen. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So before getting started, as I already mentioned, I'm kind of noob in OSS community. And also the project I'm about to talk about is like, I'm not the author, but I'm an active contributor. So without further ado, I'll explain what it is, and I'll tell you like in the end, maybe how I landed on this thing, how I started contributing to this project. So my audio is, everything is clear, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So I'm here to talk about a tool called Mevn-cli. It's actually a boilerplate generator, and it creates actually full stack web applications using Maven stack. So we see the GitHub URL here, and you can go to that and you can check it out. But I will give you a brief explanation on what it is. Okay. So if you're not that much familiar with what the name suggests, it's like a combination of like 4 technologies: MongoDB, Express.js, Vue.js, and finally Node.js. So I believe like all of almost everyone might be knowing what these technologies are, but I'll just briefly go through that. Like MongoDB is actually for a database, and Express.js is used to create backend of the web app, and Vue.js is for the web front end, and Node.js is the runtime which runs in the server. Like a combination of these 4 is actually very powerful, that we can create a wide array of applications with that, web application with that. So what basically Mevn-cli doing is creating a boilerplate using these 4 technologies. So you don't have to write those code, and we can just get started with your business logic right away without wasting any time. So why should we use Maven CLI? Why don't I just write code from the scratch, right? The idea is like, I also thought that in the beginning, like, uh, if we are writing the code from the scratch, we'll be having a better understanding. But when we are doing, say, multiple projects, this thing may it will become somewhat. It is not that a problem that we have to solve, right? It should be solved by someone else. So there are some other issues like the dependencies management and all. So all these like boilerplate generation will be handled by Maven CLI. It will just you just have to enter say a few commands and it will generate the boilerplate app for you. And not only that, it is not just copy pasting the some template from somewhere. We are actually say injecting and modifying the code. So that we got some customization option in the CLI itself. The things like uh, if I have to name few things, maybe you can Dockerize the app, or you can deploy the app so easily, like just by typing Maven CLI deploy. And yeah, those are few things that Maven CLI can do. And not only that, we can also start from various points. If you want a single page application, we can start like using the basic template. Or if it the web application should work offline, there's an option to create a PWA template, progressive web app template, so it will work offline. And if you're not that much interested in REST API, you can also choose GraphQL. And if you are into server-side rendering, Next.js option is also there. Like these are like various options you can start from, and we are planning to add more of this kind of stuff later. But at the moment, these are the stuff we already got in place. So uh, I'll give you a very short demo. This screen is properly visible, right?
Yes.
Okay. So first and foremost, we have to install Mevn-cli CLI. So this you can just search Google search Maven CLI and go to this page, or you can go to the npm page, and some prerequisites are there like npm node.js and git. This I hope almost all programmers will be will be having this already in their system. If you don't have that, just install these two things and make sure these two things are like available in the console. Then we can just globally install Maven CLI and get started with it. I'll make my demo very short uh, just to demonstrate how it works. Okay. So if we want to know what are the options that this CLI provides, you can just type Maven or Maven H and you'll be treated with all the various options that we have. And as you can see, we got this code split option. If you want to convert all your components to lazy loading components, you got that. And if you want to generate components through console, there's an option. Not only components, we can also create CRUD boilerplate templates also. And Dockerizing this app is also there. And there's a one-click deploy. This I uses a lot for my side projects, and some prototypes I used to make. Like we can just type Maven deploy and we can add credentials. Maybe currently I'm using Heroku mostly. So it will directly publicly deploy this project. And in order to get started with, we need Maven init, the first one, and you can have maybe a sample app or something. So it will ask like what are the which kind of app you have to create. So by default, it will create a single page application. And if you want to work with, as I already mentioned, like you can create a PWA, GraphQL, or Next.js template. I'll go with default for now. So by default, it will create a server-side template also, and we don't have to. It will be selected by default. So I'm just hitting enter, and a boilerplate is actually got generated for you. So if I go to this particular folder, I can see all this boilerplate is already generated for me. And I'll just start the application to make sure it's running as expected or not. So it'll be like Mevn serve, and it'll ask which side, front end or back end, we have to run. So I'll start with client, and it may take some time because my network connectivity is somewhat bad. Also, we have to install a bunch of dependencies. And once it is completed, it will start a basic application, and we can extend, we can add our business logic and extend the functionality of this app. So as you can see, like it is installing various, it is doing various stuffs in the backend. So before, yeah, it is completed. So we got treated with a front end, completed front end app. Similarly, you can start the backend too. So yeah, before moving ahead, yeah, I think I can continue my presentation. Yeah, there is this basic demo of what Mevn-cli can do, CLI can do, but it is just like a basic stuff, but you can also say create another type of templates. You can extend your existing boilerplate using this generate and all. But this is Hacktoberfest. This is Hacktober, and we are doing an event on Hacktoberfest, and of course, Mevn loves contributions. So feel free to check out our repo, and you can also always contact me or James, who is actually the author of this project, and in Twitter and all. I'll share that links and all in the end. But we love your contributions, and we believe that that is how we can like expand this thing. And we felt this is somewhat useful for us, and we have to expand its usability for everyone. So feel free to contact. So there are like three uh, areas, key areas that you can contribute. The first and foremost, I'll mention documentation, because both of us are actually coders, and we primarily focus on code, and our documentation skills are so weak. So if you can contribute on documentation, it will be great. And yeah, and I also believe that for all each and every open source project, this documentation part is very important, because that determines like how usable that product or that project is. Then second thing is like tests, writing test cases, whether it can be end-to-end test or unit tests or whatever. But it is very essential at the moment, because initially we started out, it was just a default template. Now we expanded it to say it is branched out a lot. So if we make some changes, we have to make sure like it is nothing is breaking because of that change. So a test is another area that everyone can contribute. And finally, of course, code, and feel free to contribute in code too. If you got some new idea in mind, just ask in the issues. You could just create an issue and ask it. We'll reply, and once it is confirmed, we can implement on that. We already have a bunch of issues, so you can take a look at that and take it up if you're interested. We already tagged a few issues in the Hacktoberfest tag itself, so you can contribute on that too. And yeah, of course, basically that's it. And yeah, feel free to keep in touch. If you got any doubt regarding this contribution, in what area you have to contribute and anything, just feel free to contact me or James, the author of this project. And I will tell you one more thing, like how I landed on this project. It's like actually during like last year, I was my job requirement was like I had to create a lot of say prototypes for my job. So I created those, but each and every time I have to create the same boilerplate and again. But there were some problems arising. Like basically I started one template, but if I try to reuse that, there will be some dependency issue. Or in some cases, it might not be the way I want. Like it can be similar, but the one project can be a PWA and another project can be something like utilizing GraphQL. So I cannot directly reuse this code that I wrote previously. So I was searching for something to solve that issue. That's why I found Mevn-cli in the, say, while Google searching it. And actually I made some changes into it, and I felt like, why don't I make a PR and make it available for everyone? And I was actually skeptical about how to like do contributions to OSs and all. I was so new to that. So what I did was I searched in this James in the LinkedIn, the author of this project in the LinkedIn, and I asked, like, I got this idea, but I don't know how to do that. But he was so enthusiastic about this project, and yeah, I made some PRs to that, and I currently am an active contributor to this project. Yeah, that was basically my story with the Maven CLI and how this CLI can be useful for you. And if you got any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Danny. That seems super cool. That's a very interesting and very helpful tool. Uh, Thank you. If anybody else has any questions, I guess no. Um, okay.
I think I can stop share, right? Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for everyone.
Okay, so Christian will be joining us in 5 minutes. Till then, I would like to showcase you if you are just starting up with open source, if you're starting up with making contributions. So I'd like to show you how you can do that quickly. Okay. Uh, so Christian is already here, but I'll still anyways go ahead and do that. Okay, so if you are planning to contribute to Hacktoberfest, right? So all you can do is you can go to GitHub and you can search for the label Hacktoberfest. So it is a common practice. So all the open source projects which are accepting contributions for Hacktoberfest, they put their level as Hacktoberfest in their projects, and you can just go ahead and try do the contribution. We also have a tool called Good First Issue. So there we have some projects which has listed themselves, which are issues which are good for beginners. So if you are just starting with contributions, you can find some good to fix issues there as well. Okay, so we have Toby here. So Toby, if you would like to go and demonstrate your project.
Hello, everybody. Actually, Christian has got the deck and the demonstration, so he's going to be logging on. Let me bring him on.
Okay, cool. Hey, Christian.
Hey, here we are. How's it going?
Yeah, we're doing good. How are you?
Good.
Okay, you can just go ahead and start up with your presentation.
Okay, here we go. I'll do the whole screen. All right, can you guys see this okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. This should be pretty quick. Yeah, so this is a presentation about Bubble Tea, a framework for building terminal user interfaces. All right, here we go. I think my co-founder Toby is here too. We run a company called Charm, which is a tool for building stuff for the command line. We really like the command line. We'll get into that. So what is it? So Bubble Tea is, like I was saying, a little tool to build things for the command line, kind of rich tools. It's built on the Elm architecture. It's good for inline and full window applications. It's pretty high performance. It's written in Go and it's open source. So these are kind of things we built with Bubble Tea. We'll get into that in a little bit, but we just kind of very rich, kind of almost what you would see on the web, but translated for the terminal. We built some pretty big things with it. We built one thing in particular. These are all kind of fast GIFs. I built the whole thing with GIFs because I did this in Figma. It doesn't support video, and I thought it'd be fun to do with GIFs. But they're all very short. But this is a tool for reading Markdown on the terminal and kind of stashing it up to the cloud, and you can kind of encrypt your stash. It's a nice little tool for consuming Markdown. It takes up the full window. Here's an example. If you guys want to see it, you can kind of go through Markdown and find all kinds of local Markdown and stash it and read it, stuff like that.
I'll add the repo to the chat if you guys want to take a look at it. So that's the GitHub repo. And please start it if you enjoy it.
Yeah, sorry, my presentation's a little not super ready because we're on a little bit early, but this should help to give you an idea. But again, you can check out the repo too. It's really fun, I think. There's another tool we built called Charm. This is a really fast GIF, but it's for managing your account on the kind of Charm plaid we built, which just has to do with Glow, where you kind of stash your stuff. We make sure all of our products have mascots. So here's a little guy down here, a little guy down there. We spend a lot of time on the brand. So when we maybe I'll talk about how we kind of built this. We really love the CLI a lot, but at the same time, we love it because oh, here we go. Sorry, things are locking up. Because as you guys probably know, you can work really fast on it. It gives you a lot of power. You can kind of compose things together. You kind of pipe things and chain things, and it's just a really good way to focus. But at the same time, it kind of feels like it's the 1970s at MIT in the command line. And it's not the 1970s anymore. And so we were hoping like maybe we can kind of bring the terminal to the future. And so Bubble Tea, that's kind of where Bubble Tea came in. Well, I spent a lot of time early on looking at FZF, which is really nice. It's this little thing just for filtering stuff on the command line, finding things basically. And what I really liked about it is that you could set it up so that it would open up in a little tiny thing and kind of give you a little kind of rich interaction that kind of close back up, and you'd stay kind of in line on your terminal rather than opening up a new screen the way Vim does. And so we poked around because there's a lot of tools in Go because we were building stuff in Go. There's a lot of tools in Go to kind of build stuff for the whole window like T-cell, but nothing really for what we wanted. No libraries, nothing for doing this sort of inline thing. Fuzzy Find its kind of whole thing was kind of homegrown. So we're like, okay, so we need. Guess we have to build something. We need a way to kind of not reinvent the wheel every time. We need to make a kind of framework to do this in. And we were kind of thinking about just kind of our whole kind of thesis general was what if we bring kind of best practices from the rest of the industry to the command line. So we were kind of looking at Elm. Here's the Elm logo. So with Elm, we were doing stuff on the for the web with Elm, and I really like Elm. It's very, very simple, very readable, just really fun to work with. IO is asynchronous, and it's just really fun to do. And we were like, well, maybe we can translate this to Go. And Go has a really nice concurrency model, so it kind of fit in with Elm. And then we were like, oh, and then the whole reason we worked with Go in the first place was Go is really fast. It just operates really fast, almost as fast as you can do stuff in C. It's really good for distribution. We can build programs and it compiles down to one single binary, which is really nice because You don't need to download any dependencies, and it's one single file you can send off to people. So it's kind of bite-sized and easy. And we can compile to kind of any platform in Go. So we can compile to Windows, we can compile to FreeBSD, we can compile to ARM from our Mac or from our Linux machine or whatever. It's really, really cross-compilation stuff is really good. And it's fun. It's fun and it's not precious. I worked a lot in Haskell, and Toby worked a lot in Rust, and they're fun, but you can go down super deep spirals of abstraction and kind of go crazy. And Go's not fancy. It's almost not even exciting, which makes it so nice because it's just very, very practical and very, very useful.
It forces you to work on the non-fun parts, which is like whatever problem you're trying to solve, instead of building like macros and all kinds. I was like a Clojure developer for a long time too, and it's like I miss all of the fun, exciting, exotic things I used to do that took up 90% of my time that was not spent solving whatever problem I had set out to try to solve in the first place. So with Go, it's like you have no option for fun. It's all just about getting the job done, and they give you tons of great tools for doing that. So that's kind of like why we settled on Go.
Yeah, exactly. I like to build stuff in Haskell, but man, that stuff never gets done ever. Your monads on top of monads. So yeah, Go is really practical that way. So then it was like time to build. Then it was like, okay, time to build it. So I had to go look at go research how the terminal worked and stuff. And it turned out all of the manuals that we looked at on how to do stuff with the terminal were from the 70s and 80s. One was from the 90s about doing mouse stuff, I think from 1990, but really it went back to 1986. And we were kind of like, well, I guess this is how it is. The terminal really hasn't changed much since it looked like this. In fact, this one's almost more advanced than what you can do now, because you have this little thing here where like the line is twice as big, you have different fonts. So in a way, it kind of still is the 1970s at MIT in the terminal in a lot of ways. And actually, when you start to work with it, you're like, it really goes back to, there's a roll of paper and there's a bell and you're punching keys and making the little thing move in the paper roll. Also, why do we call it bubble tea? T is an acronym for the Elm architecture. And honestly, we wanted a cute mascot, and we thought this would be fun. We built this in Cinema 4D, and we really believe, like, we take a strong, we think branding is really important to the stuff we do. So yeah, you can go check it out on GitHub. Also, we have a component library for Bubble Tea with all these things you saw before. This library called Bubbles on GitHub. So I think that's it. This was probably way faster than 15 minutes, but we can answer questions and stuff if you want. If you guys have anything you want to talk about or anything like that, we can talk about. I can talk about developing for the terminal forever.
Yes, that was super awesome. That was super cool. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah.
So if you would like to talk more about terminal, you can just go ahead because we have time right now. So I don't want you to think that we are in short of time.
Cool. Yeah, not a lot more I can say about it, but except that
we can talk a little bit about Glow and Charm as well. So
yeah, we can show you our stuff.
We built Bubble Tea because we needed dog food this stuff, right? Like we're building terminal applications, and we wanted to build them in a way that was really modern. And so it was nice that we were able to spin out some libraries as we were developing, but the main sort of like flagship product that we've built so far is that Glow repo where I put the URL into the chat. And that's actually been doing really well on GitHub for the last couple of weeks. We got like 1,000 stars in the last 48 hours because we got #1 on Hacker News. So that was like really cool. And the entire concept of Glow is making a really good markdown reading experience on the command line. And it started, we soft launched it in December because again, we wanted to build stuff for ourselves on the terminal. And we created the company in October with the idea of building modern product on the command line. And the very first thing we did is say like, okay, when we develop a website, you've got HTML and you've got CSS, right? You've got a style that applies to the structure. You've got separation of concerns, you've got parallelized development, you've got the right tool for the job, but such a thing did not exist for the terminal. So the first thing we built was a library called Glamour, which takes a JSON style sheet and applies it to Markdown structurally. And it says like, okay, we've got ANSI styling in the terminal. Let's make your header 3s this color. Let's underline the links. Like, let's italicize things. And then that allowed us to start building interfaces in Markdown for the terminal and then styling them up with Glamour. That we thought was needed just to develop how we wanted to develop. And then kind of for free, we're like, you know, let's toss a command in front of this so people can view Markdown. And so we created Glow just as a really basic wrapper to the Glamour library. And the very first version of Glow did nothing other than just render Markdown. You say like Glow, readme, MD, man, and it'll show it to you. It took off though. People really, really liked it. We had some fancy features in there, like Glamour will detect the color of your terminal, the background color. So if it's a light color terminal, you get the light color scheme. If it's dark background, then you get the dark color scheme. That kind of stuff was pretty neat. And so to us, that said like, okay, people are really interested in this. I think we got like 1,000 stars on Glow. It ended up being like around 2,000. GitHub actually took Glamour. We did a pull, our intern did a pull request into the GitHub CLI project. So if you go to the official github.com/CLI/CLI, that's their new official terminal project. And it uses Glamour to render Markdown. So that's pretty cool. That's good for us, because it's just nice that they did that. But it allows you to use the standardized Glamour style sheet JSON across multiple projects. So there's a command line environment called Glamour style sheets, and you can point it at a JSON file, and everything uses Glamour. We'll use it, including the GitHub CLI. So you can change the styling across multiple tools with that environment variable, which I think is pretty cool. Doing this new release that we just did like this week, starting last week, was kind of doubling down on that, right? We had a popular open source project. Our business model is a Charm Cloud. We have a set of services that we provide very much based around fulfilling terminal-based use cases, mainly around identity and data storage. We used Glow as sort of the flagship thin end of the wedge there to get the Charm Cloud out. So the new version of Glow has a TUI that we built with Bubble-T. It has the ability to stash documents to our cloud. It encrypts the documents. It knows who you are. So the very first time you run Glow, it taps into the Charm accounts, which we designed to be zero friction. So you won't even necessarily know that it's making an account for you. But the first time you run Glow interactively, it'll check to see if you're a Charm user. If you're not, it'll generate new SSH keys for you, because that's what powers our identity system. And then it will create an account for you on our servers, and then it'll allow you to start stashing. It'll create an encryption key for you, encrypt it for your public key that we just generated for you, and then encrypt any stashed documents locally on your machine with that symmetric key, then push it to our servers. We have another tool called Charm that allows you to manage your account. So if you want to link two machines together, for instance, there's a link flow where it gives you a code to put in on one machine and another machine. And what that'll do is generate a new set of SSH keys, and then it will re-encrypt all of your symmetric encryption keys for the new public key that you just linked. And again, this happens on the client side, so no unencrypted content ever hits our servers. And we've created this sort of like infrastructure for identifying you and encrypting content and managing sort of encryption keys. And so here Christian is demonstrating the sort of like link flow for Charm.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was all pretty cool. And as we've developed this, we've tried to really open source every little bit of it. So Glamour's open source, Bubble-T's open source, Bubbles is open source. We have an encryption library called Sasquatch that our developer Mevn-cli created. That handles some of the encryption stuff that we do on the sort of like low level. That looks interesting. So that's kind of like where we're at today with everything, like pushing our infrastructure out there. This is the first gen of everything that really touches the Charm Cloud, but it seems to be being well received. And so that's kind of where we're at right now.
It's kind of the gist of it, yeah.
That is a super cool.
Do you have any
I feel bad about not knowing about this earlier now.
Yeah, we are actually building a CLI, so I think we can use this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about telling this to Shaurya that we can, use this thing to all that.
Well, if anyone is interested in finding out more, let us know, and we can invite you to our Slack. Because again, everything's really focused right now on fulfilling the Glow use cases of stashing Markdown, but we're making it more abstract. to fulfill like other applications needs. So there's a bit of handholding that would be required right now to really get the most out of it. Bubble tea, you can just start banging away with, like make beautiful interfaces with Bubble tea. You can do that now. If you want to interface with the Charm Cloud, we're there for you to help you do that. And it probably requires a bit of sort of like interaction to onboard that. So let us know if anyone's interested in that. We can certainly send. In fact, why don't I just share the Slack invite link in here, and then anyone who wants to join can do that.
Sure. So.
There we go. I got it in the Zoom chat.
Awesome.
Yeah. Interesting. Also, just to reiterate, I'm not sure if everybody was there when Siddhant demonstrated this, but we have a grant for open source developers. So 10 developers get $500 in cash. 10 open source projects get $500 in cash. So you can apply from here. I think the link is already in the chat. I'll add it again.
That's really cool.
So this is yeah. All right.
I like your footer on the website. It looks very very charm style.
Thank you. Also, Toby, your question, if anybody of you would like to answer that. So since you said that you have grabbed a lot of eyeballs during the past 24 hours, you have trended one on Hacker News. So this is a month of October, right? So Hacktoberfest. So you like, how do you deal up with all the PRs? Like, what according to you? So since bubble tea and a lot of charm projects are open source, right? So what if you want to share something about good open source, like contribution practices, like how do you expect people to contribute to your projects? That would be awesome.
So we've got, it's still really early, and we've been so heads down on just getting this shipped for the last like 3 months that we haven't really focused on that. I can tell. So we had Glow, right, and it was somewhat popular and it was public. As we developed all these new features, we made a private repo. So we had like a Glow internal repo that was just like another remote on our thing, and we developed all this kind of like in secret to some degree, just because it was a massive change to the code base, right, and like a really big introduction of features and stuff. And then what we ended up doing was it's actually kind of difficult to get the code bases in sync towards the end, it turned out. But then we pushed like 3 months worth of work live, and we put it public. And so now we're okay with people like working with this code base, right? One of the things that's helpful for us is just like a bit of history of myself and the company. I used to be the VP of engineering for Last.fm, or the VP of mobile for Last.fm and the client team. And one of the developers that we have working for us is Mevn-cli. And so he was on my team at Last.fm as well. And he's like a monster of open source, right? Like he's got just tons of projects that are like over 1,000 stars. He's got like a lot of really good sort of communication channels to the developer community. And so he knows a lot about community management and the sort of like code flow collaboration management. So we kind of lean on him a bit for that. He's really good at releasing our software, getting it in the package managers. It's also helpful for us that the other sort of like lead developer on my team at Last.fm and TweetDeck and a bunch of other places I work with, Max Howell, who's the homebrew guy. And so Max has had to deal with collaboration at a scale that like nobody has, right? Like homebrew, he invented this model of fork it, add your formula, we'll do the PR. And so all of a sudden there's like 30,000 forks, right? And so there was, I think homebrew probably initiated this collaboration model of just like massive amounts of forking and essentially treating Git and GitHub as a database for the backend for a system, right? And so we've actually even talked to people at GitHub who are like, when homebrew launched, we had to create a whole new rack of servers just to support homebrew because it was like a different use model than the rest of the repos on the site. And so that was very interesting. And so Max has just tons of insight into just really high volume contribution and how to do this. And it turns out it's really difficult, right? Like he kind of rage quit homebrew because it was too much for him to just be like 10,000 people complaining about something. That's a very difficult thing to do. So there's like psychological things you have to prepare for as you get really popular, I think. And you have to be willing to just really handhold the most annoying of content and issues and questions that are kind of come your way, and you have to be ready for that. But I think you think like about it like homebrew, right? Like what are these models that really tap into collaboration that we can tie into. And we don't have a lot of like need for that in our projects, but it's good that we have these people around who have gone through these massive battles, right? So we can kind of lean on them as we go through and as we scale up.
Okay, that's nice. So I can see the project. I actually have the GitHub page open for the bubble tea, so I can see there are only 7 contributors to it, and yeah seems pretty good.
Yeah,
it's pretty, and it was like 3 contributors 5 days ago or something. So this is a lot for us. It's like we're starting to get people doing stuff, and it's really nice to see that, right? Because not only does it make the open source project better, but it means people really care about it if they're even bothering to like code, and that means they're probably going to be using it as well, which for a library like Bubble Tea is really important.
Nice. So I can see a lot of contributions are from Christian. So good job, Christian.
Yeah, Christian. This is Christian's baby for sure. I have one commit in this project that is like I fixed some bug or something like that, and it's like literally like 1 line of code that I've done on Bubble Tea.
Yeah, I've been working on it for like 9 months, I think.
But that's like a lot of good work for 9 months. Like
something that's interesting is when we first launched this, like last week, it was a different model. It was more functional and less like Go-y. So it took like a function that took just a generic interface, and then it kind of did some introspection-y kind of things to figure it out. And right away, people are like, oh, I'm a Golang developer, and this isn't really the Golang way to do it. Why don't you have a proper interface? And so we talked about that internally, and Christian changed sort of the main doorway into interacting with Bubble Tea to where it takes this like well-defined Golang style interface. So it was kind of more Elmy before and more Haskell-y.
Yeah,
now
it was
it's
a lot
more Go-y.
There was introspection, but there was a lot more type assertions and type switches and things like that. A lot more like what you would do in like in a function language, which didn't really feel good in Go, but it kind of worked. But now it's a lot more Go-like, which is actually really nice.
And that change came from the community. That came initiated from the community once this thing like hit reality, and people are like, "Oh, this is awesome!" But I wish it was just like tweaked a little hair, right? And so that was cool to like listen to feedback from early users, especially the early ones who jump on it right away and try to satisfy as many people as possible, probably.
Yeah, and it's been like a lot of those PRs come in, like they first come in, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, who do they think they are? But I'm like, I kind of step back and I read it, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're totally right, actually. I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's a great idea, man.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for the demo.
I have a question. So you talked about interfaces and stuff, right? So and then you're reflecting inside those functions for actually checking the type. So would these problems be solved by generics, or were these problems could these be solved by generics, or?
I don't think so. I think because there's not actually reflection happening. They're just type switches. But
yeah, I misspoke. It's not really reflection. It's just type switching.
Oh.
I don't think so, because the types are because like maybe polymorphism, but I don't think so. Just because
the interface got us a long way there, I think, because now you can implement that interface on any struct, right, and then feed that in as a model. To Bubble Tea. So I think that the interface model more than generics worked out pretty good for this, because you basically just have to do an update, render, and I don't remember what the other one is, but you implement 3 methods on your struct, and then it satisfies the interface, and you're good.
What would be helpful is would be maybe like some types, so that you can kind of because what we're doing is in the update function, there's like a set list of messages that come in, and if it was a sum type, we could know if the list was exhaustive or not. So basically, we could make sure that we're responding to all available message that could possibly come in, versus not knowing if we've exhausted the list or not.
And that's not even a Bubble Tea. Like some types in Go would be like, I would take that over generics any day of the week. Like especially for like errors and stuff. Like you could have a class of errors and things of this nature. But and state machines, it's really nice to have all of your states be a sum type, right? And so it's really lame that Go doesn't have that. And you do a lot of sort of like verbose hacking around it. And to me, that would have been like, I can see why you probably wouldn't want generics. I like generics, but I could see the argument against them. Some types that just makes things clearer and easier and nicer. So I don't know why they wouldn't have something like that.
I was reading about the reason, I want to say the reason they don't have some types is because it clashes with the interface model too much. Something like that. I have to read it again. I read it and I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense, but it's still.
And then 5 seconds later, you're like, why don't they have subtypes? It's like you have to literally be told at real time why it needs to be like this, and then it makes sense. But otherwise, no.
So, all right. So all these bubbles that you have, of course, they are all different types, and that's something that bubble tea uses. Just thinking about the architecture.
Yeah. So as we were building Bubble Tea, we started making reusable things, and we kind of we moved into this library called Bubbles. Basically.
We'll probably do some bubbles that are more like right now, they're just all kind of standalone input boxes, progress bars, stuff like that, pagers. We'll probably do some that hook into the Charm Cloud and help manage that a little bit, like, oh, a data upload thing or whatever, right? And then it just like seamlessly works with our backend. One thing that we got feedback and kind of pushback on right away is people were like, what if you guys get bought by Google and become evil? Like, what happens to my data? Or you go out of business, like then my data's host. Why can't we self-host this? And we've been thinking about that, right? Like I self-host SourceGraph, I self-host Git-T, and I like that. I like the freedom behind it. It's a lot. I always forget to do security updates and all kinds of like horrible things like that. So this is definitely a reason not to self-host. But I think we will probably go in that direction where we take our backend and we allow you to self-host it, and then you can just change a couple environment variables and say like, you know what, or a configuration file. I don't want to use the Charm Cloud. I want to use my own self-hosted version of the Charm Cloud, and we think that is just nice for users, right? But there's strategic value in that too, because we want to have really easy import and export back and forth. So if you're self-hosting, there should just be a gigantic button that says, okay, I'm done self-hosting. Click this. I want to import everything into the hosted Charm Cloud. And then I can shut down my server, and then I have all my data, and vice versa. Like I want to escape from the Charm Cloud because Charm got bought by Google. Here's my server address, export, and then everything's there, right? And so we're kind of starting to think through these models and how it works with our business model and how it works with the community, and how it works with our products. So that, I think, stay tuned, right? And no promises, but that's kind of the direction that we're thinking of going.
Okay, so I think you guys must have missed that. So we have a feature called Discover. I'll share my screen and show you that. So here, this is a tool, a feature called Discover. You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in Python, right, there is a formatter called isort. So we have seen that since isort, since the time isort started using it, they have seen a lot of contributions to their project. So maybe you can use this tool, use this feature to attract more contributors to your project, to more contributors to Bubble Tea or any of your existing open source project, so that people can find and fix issues which DeepSource discovers. So since it's 100% written in Go, we already have an analyzer, a Go analyzer, which can analyze your files there. And so what basically happens to Discover, you can go there and you can choose the technologies you want to see. So let's say I choose only Go, right? So I can see all the Go issues here, which are updated occasionally, which are updated within in few hours. So all this issue would happen here, would occur here. So if Bubble Tea uses DeepSource, so all the issues from Bubble Tea will be shown here, and people can come and contribute and fix that issue in your repository.
Cool. Really nice.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
yeah, actually, one more cool thing is that Dell also uses DeepSource as a Dell the debugger. So they also use it. We are really excited about that part.
Yes.
We're still so young that like we don't have a lot of issues. We're starting to get some like, hey, a bug or whatever. I think Glow's got 19. We haven't. So I guess we've been pretty good about like saying like, okay, we want this feature. Let's make an issue for it or something. But we haven't been living in GitHub issues as of yet.
So I have a like contradictory opinion here. So I don't know if you would agree to that. But according to me, what I think is if you use a tool like this, right, a tool like static analysis tool earlier in your project, like when your project is starting, so it will make sure your project would have fewer issues compared to when it matures and when it develops, and when you like there might be some things which the maintainers miss or things like that. So yeah, I have this contradictory approach to that.
Yeah, no, I think you guys are already using Golang CI, right? So I just checked. So you already have a
Yeah,
Golang
we
CI
use a lot.
action.
We use the meta linter. We use the lot of.
Yeah,
I mean,
Golang CI is great.
Yeah, and
Christian have
that's a
usually been cramming
pretty
all
good
kinds of
tool.
stuff in there. I don't even know anymore. I just get yelled
Yeah.
at, and it's like, hey, okay, I'll fix it. Fix my code. If you guys want to play with something else that's kind of simple, the charm tool itself has really basic encryption at the sort of command line level. So you can do something like this. Let's see, where's the chat here? So you could say like cat mything.txt to charm encrypt. Actually, you probably need to write that to encrypted.json. So that you can do, and this will use our account system and our encryption system to encrypt things locally, and then it'll just spit it to standard out. So the encrypted data will be spit to standard out, and then you can do like cat encrypted.json to charm decrypt, and then you'll get your decrypted thing. And then you could take that encrypted JSON, put it on Dropbox or whatever, and then you would be able to decrypt it on any machine that you linked to Charm, even if it happened later, right? I encoded this today. I buy a new laptop tomorrow. I link that laptop to Charm. I can decrypt the data that I encrypted on the other machine now on my new laptop. So we think that is, and this is something we want to go like further in with product development, but this was the foundation for encrypting the stashes in Glow. But then we wanted to expose it as a command as well inside of Charm. So it's not Glow specific. It's not even tied to storing data in our Charm cloud. It's just a simple encryption tool and key management tool, essentially at that point, that you can run in scripts or whatever, right? And so this is the predecessor of more features we want to add in the Charm cloud for like storing encrypted data or encrypting things for me. Like or Christian, if I want to send him a password file or something, I should be able to say like, Charm share Christian, and it'll find his key, or maybe we'll make a new symmetric key. We're still kind of thinking through the semantics of this, a shared symmetric key, encrypt the data for it, and then go from there. So there's probably collaboration encryption models that we're going to be baking into this. But for now, single player encryption works pretty good in this.
Or maybe you could just figure out P2P, sending it P2P. So
I would love that. I have another project called Detergent that's a P2P, and this is like just a weirdo open source thing I did years ago, but Detergent is a P2P discovery and publication thing. I have another one called Key.run that like encodes data, encodes magnet URLs onto the Bitcoin blockchain and all this stuff. So I'm a huge fan of P2P, but Charm is probably going to be more of a federated model than P2P. So if you do these self-hosted Charm backends, maybe they can talk to each other or something, right? The import export is probably the simplest form of that, but that's not really P2P. That's more federation, like Mastodon style. But still, it's not centralized, right? And it's not a walled silo. So we think that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think that's the entire surface area of everything that we built. So now you guys are fully up to speed on all of the tools and tricks that you can do with all of our stuff.
Okay. I can see Shore is like really interested to try it out.
Yeah,
please do, and
it.
jump into Slack and just yell at us or whatever. If you guys have any feedback, we're always willing to listen.
Awesome. I cannot find the link for Slack. Can you post it again in the chat?
Yes. All right, there you go.
Cool. Thank you.
It's not super high volume, but it's a bunch of the people who have been really there from the early days, like helping us out. We got a couple GitHub guys in there too, so they're all in there promoting the latest GitHub feature, and we're like, yeah, great. But they're our friends, so you'll see them in there too. I'm actually gonna have to jump because I've got somebody pinging me.
Yep,
but thank you guys for the opportunity to do
Thanks
this.
so much
This was
for
like
having
really,
us.
really great.
Yeah, thank you, Toby and Christian.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the presentation, and thank you for showing us this awesome product.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks so
you.
much.
Thank you, and hope to see you guys around.
Sure.
See ya.
Bye.
So we had one more talk, one more demo, but I don't think he's here yet.
So Siddhant, I think you have been contributing to Babel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you could share what brought you there, and how you were able to stay. As in, so for me, a problem is that there's a kind of an investment that you have to make before you can actually start contributing to a repository, right? So how did you go about that? Before GSOC, not after GSOC, but before GSOC, how did you go about doing that? And how are you still contributing to it?
Yeah, so I was in my college, and there was one of my seniors who used to contribute to Node.js. So I was really inspired by him, because like whenever I used Node.js, I like thought that his code is running on my system. So it like helped me think that like his code is so influential, like it is helping so many people make good products. So I thought that I should also like start contributing to open source. And I was interested in JavaScript, so I asked him like, what project should I contribute to? So he said like, choose anyone, like start contributing the one which interests you, and you will get along. So I started to find some projects, and I was also interested in learning how languages work, like how JavaScript work, how it is compiled behind the scene. So I started to look for JavaScript compilers out there, or JavaScript interpreters out there. And I found a project known as Babel, and it was a very cool project. And the best part was that it did not have a corporate committee that governs it. It had some maintainers who were present all around the world, and they were contributing to it. So I pinged one of them, and I like asked him like, how should I start contributing? And then he sent me some guides and the list to some blogs that I should follow to learn about the architecture of Babel and about everything. So I went through the blogs, I went through the slides, also the talks, and then I slowly started to contribute to the docs. My first pull request was to the documentation, and it was just to fix a comma. It was nothing else. But for that, I had to read the whole documentation. So it helped me like understand the project, how it is set up, how it works, what is the process to send a PR. So I got acknowledged to that in the first PR, and after that I picked up a good first issue, and it was a really small one. So I was working on it, and whenever I had some problem, I pinged the maintainer, and they helped me. So the best part was that they were very helpful, and it is the most exciting part of open source contribution, that everyone is very helpful. So slowly and slowly I started contributing, and yes, after that picked up some big issues and a new feature also.
Great, great.
So, what was your GSOC project like? Which project did you work on during your GSOC?
I worked for public lab for GSOC, and after my GSOC, I contributed to Babel.
Okay, got it.
Public Lab is an organization in USA which works for like improving the environment, and it makes various do-it-yourself kits to like prevent environment pollution. So my project was to make a spectral workbench on a mobile. Like the scientists, they use a spectrometer. So that spectrometer costs around $1,000. But if a student wants to use that spectrometer for his or her research, to like research the quality of various oils, to research the quality of various elements around us, so they do not have the stipend or anything to spend $1,000 for a spectrometer. So the project was Spectral Workbench. It was a project through which we can use our mobile camera as a spectrometer. So I contributed to that. And after the GSOC, I started to contribute to Babel.
That's nice. Amazing. Good work, Siddhant.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we'll just wrap it up. If anybody else would have any question.
Yeah, I think that there would be some more people who have contributed to open source, or maybe they are facing some issues contributing to open source. So Azim and yeah, and Adil. I'm not sure.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm starting to learn about these things. So recently, I did basic thing like how the pull request and all works, like contributed dot JSON file. So adding those kind of things. So I just know the basics. So I would really appreciate if you could provide me or get me an overview of any roadmap to follow, because I'm starting. So any tips or any points to keep it in mind, so that I don't waste time in googling or searching these things, because you all people are like well versed with these things. So I assume I
Yeah,
can really get good start. But at least at some point you have to start. So I think it's a good thing that I met you people.
yeah, same here. I also have the same issues. When I, look at a repository, I get intimidated, by the or by seeing all the file structures, and I can't quite understand how things work. So I also want, some tips on how to get started.
I think the easiest way right now, it would sound like I'm selling, but actually this is the easiest way to just use DeepSource. Even if a project that you want is not on DeepSource, right, is not on DeepSource Discover, you can just, I'll just share my screen. You can just fork that repository. For example, if you have, say, this is a very interesting project. So this is actually a debugger in Go. What languages do you guys write?
I use Python.
I use
Okay, so
Python and JavaScript.
sure, I'll just use a Python repository then. So Srijan, can you suggest a Python repository? Some interesting one.
Um, let me think. Hey, ISOT, use ISOT. ISOT is already using DeepSource, right?
Okay, ISOT is already using DeepSource, but I was trying to give a demo for some other repositories. So I'll just use Explore.
I think you should look for Python repositories in Good First Issue, because they would have beginner friendly issues there.
Yeah. So yeah, this is an interesting one. So this is something that we maintain. So you can probably go ahead and pick an issue maybe from here, or whichever project that interests you, right? So what what should we pick up? Falcon. I'm not sure what this is. Again, Srijan, I need your help here.
Okay, so before that, I would like to let them know about some things, like some few terminologies, because they are just starting with this open source contribution. So in any open source repos you go, right? So there is a normal, like, general convention that people tag some issues at good first issues. So in any repositories, GitHub repositories, there are issues, right? So good first issues are beginner friendly issues. The reason why Shaurya told you that DeepSource is a good place to start fixing these issues is some of the good first issues, right? They require a background of what that project is doing, how that thing is working, right? So you can always go here and fix it, or you can run a quick DeepSource analysis on this, and after that you'll see some issues. Good thing about those issues are in the issue description, right? It's a very nicely written description which will tell you, okay, why is this an issue, what is wrong here. So you might not know this is wrong, but after the description you will know exactly why it is wrong and what can fix it, like what is the recommended way of doing it. So you can start from there. And in good first issues, right, in these repositories which tag them their issues as good first issue, I think
Yeah,
some of them might be like
yeah.
pretty beginner
It's
friendly.
hard to get started. Yeah, I mean, relatively harder. So this issue, for example, it says Hacktoberfest, right? So for example, if you get started with this, probably they're hoping that maybe maybe you are just starting off with this. I mean, that's why you are on Hacktoberfest, right? But this documentation, this is a bug. So even to fix this bug, you'll probably need to go about and read a lot about this, right? But if you just did, if you just went to this, or yeah, yeah, just went to discover. If you just went to discover and looked for this repository, you would see a lot of issues plus the actual file that you're going to see. So I'm just following. I'll remove this and follow Python. Also, there's one more Masonite framework. This is like for example, we know of Django and Flask. So this is another web framework in Python. So similarly, if is there a way to find isort here?
See the unused variable found, right? Or unused
Yeah. Just take a look here, right? So just take a look here. So you don't have to actually go about and see, go about and figure out yourself where the issue is that you have to fix, right? So it exactly gives you, as in just to get started, right? It gives you the file name and the line number where what exactly is there. So consider using ternary. And most of these, if you have your own fork, most of these would also have auto fixes, like I showed for the first run.
Yeah, this issue does have an auto fix. Like,
yeah,
you're not
so
able to
just
see it, but yeah.
so all you have to do is just fork it for your own fork it for yourself. Why is it so slow? And just run it, just fix one or two issues and start sending PRs. So you get the initial motivation to do this, and then you just keep doing all of it, right? And you just keep diving deeper into this. This is a very interesting project and maintained by the PyCQA. Right? Similarly, there are a lot of other projects. You can find it here, or maybe just go and find it on GitHub, fork it, run DeepSource on it, find a few issues, fix it, and send it back as a pull request. Just to get started, and then as you keep getting more interested in it, just keep doing it more and more. Right? I think this is a good way to do this.
Also, they have descriptions to help you.
Yes, so there are descriptions as well.
And it's like quite interesting thing, because I was reading like many of the issues yesterday. I mean, to check from like which one to pick. Few of them I was like I went through these generators or something, like basic mathematical thing. One project was there. So it would generate some probability for some teachers and students. So those who want random things. But thing was like I had to go through like entire thing to read to understand. So that was taking a lot of time, I think. I think this is the best way I will start with these small steps.
Yeah, to get started, I think this is the best way. Also, if you are relatively new to Python, then these descriptions will also be very, very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see this thing, right? Definitely.
So you can probably just go through this. And
Yeah, I think like let's wrap it. So guys, if you have any questions, so you can just ask Shaurya and Srijan here. I think no questions for now. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for joining us, and Sora and Srijan for giving a presentation and demo of Discover, how it is useful for beginners and contributor to Hacktoberfest.
And thank you, Danny, for the Maven CLI demo. That was like really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you all again. And I think so. If you have any questions around DeepSource Discover, so you can tweet us at our tweet handle DeepSource HQ, and we'll be happy to help you guys over there. Yeah, so I think let's wrap it up. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining, and bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye.
Good
Yeah,
night,
thanks and everyone. Yeah, bye.
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 Yeah, bye.
Bye.